Chapter 1. The Gift of Warmth. The alley behind the cathedral smelled of wet stone and dying things. Mira pressed her back against the brick wall, clutching the threadbare blanket tighter around her shoulders. Snow fell in thick curtains, muffling the city's distant heartbeat. Her fingers had gone numb an hour ago. She'd stopped feeling her toes sometime after midnight. She should have stayed at the shelter. But the man there, the one with hungry eyes and wandering hands, had made that impossible. Better to freeze alone than survive violated. The wind shifted, carrying a metallic scent that made her stomach clench. Blood. Fresh blood, sharp and wrong against the snow's clean coldness. Mira's breath caught. A figure lay crumpled 20 feet away, half buried in shadow. Dark fabric spread around him like wings. His hand pale as marble stretched toward her, fingers curled in supplication. Every survival instinct screamed at her to run. She took 3 steps forward instead. "Hello?" Her voice cracked from disuse. "Can you hear me?" No response. The hand didn't move. Mira's grandmother had died in an alley like this, alone, cold. While people stepped over her body like she was garbage, the memory propelled her forward. Up close, the man looked carved from moonlight and shadow, beautiful in a way that hurt to witness. His face held angles too perfect for ordinary flesh, high cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, lips parted as if mid-prayer. Dark hair fell across his forehead in frost-tipped waves. His coat was expensive. Foreign. The kind of thing that cost more than she'd see in 10 lifetimes. Blood stained his collar. Not much. Just enough to prove he was dying. "Stay with me." Mira knelt beside him, wincing as the frozen ground bit through her jeans. She pressed trembling fingers to his throat, searching for a pulse. His skin burned like winter itself, not cold, but the absence of heat. The sensation crawled up her arm like electricity. She jerked. Back. His eyes opened. They were the color of storms at midnight, gray shot through with silver, depthless as centuries. They fixed on her face with an intensity that froze her lungs mid-breath. "You!" His voice was silk over gravel. "You shouldn't be here. You're bleeding." Mira fumbled with her blanket. I can help, maybe. There's a hospital 6 blocks. No hospital." The command carried weight that made her spine straighten. Then his expression softened, became almost human. "Please, they cannot find me." Running from someone, just like her. The parallel made her decision simple. Mira spread her blanket over his chest, tucking it around his shoulders. It was thin, worn, insufficient against weather like this, but it was all she had. "Keep it," she whispered. "I'll manage." His eyes widened, the first genuine emotion she'd seen there. "You would give your only protection to a stranger? My grandmother used to say kindness is the only thing poverty can't steal." Mira tried to smile. "Besides, you need it more than I do." A lie. She'd be hypothermic within the hour. Worth it, if he lived. The man's hand shot out, catching her wrist before she could pull away. His grip was gentle but absolute, a cage lined with velvet. "What is your name?" "Mira. Mira." He tasted the syllables like wine. "I am Soren. Nice to meet you, Soren. Now let go so I can find help." "There is no help coming." His thumb traced her pulse point. "Not for me. Not in time." The sadness in his voice cracked something inside her chest. "Then why did you tell me to leave?" she asked quietly. "Because proximity to me is death." Soren's gaze dropped to her throat. Something flickered behind his eyes, hunger, quickly smothered. "Yet you covered me, fed me warmth, offered mercy to something that deserves none. Everyone deserves mercy. Not everyone is capable of receiving it." The cryptic words should have frightened her. Instead, Mira felt an odd kinship. She knew what it meant to be cast out, unwanted, convinced of your own worthlessness until someone proved otherwise. "You're capable," she said firmly. "I can tell." Soren stared at her for 3 heartbeats. 4. The snow fell faster, building drifts around them both. Then he sat up. The movement was too smooth, too controlled for someone who'd been dying moments ago. The blanket slipped from his shoulders, revealing an embroidered sigil on his coat, a crown pierced by thorns. "Royalty. You gave me a gift, Mira of the alleys." Soren rose to his feet, like shadow given form. "One I cannot repay with coin or empty gratitude, but I can offer shelter, safety, a place where neither cold nor cruel men can reach you." She scrambled upright, suddenly aware of how he towered over her. I don't understand. You don't need to understand. You need to survive. He extended his hand, palm up. An invitation. Come with me. Why would you help me? Because you helped me first. His smile was sad, ancient. And because I have spent 300 years learning the value of mercy. 300 years. The words hung between them like frost. Mira looked at his offered hand, pale, strong, impossibly steady. Then at the alley behind her, where darkness promised only more suffering, fear warred with desperate hope, she took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, and the world tilted sideways. Chapter 2. The Threshold. The city vanished. Mira's stomach lurched as colors bled together, streetlights becoming ribbons of gold, snow transforming into silver sheets. The ground disappeared beneath her feet. She would have screamed, but her lungs forgot how to work. Then solidity returned. They stood before iron gates 20 feet high, woven with rose vines long dead. Beyond them, a mansion rose against the sky like a monument to forgotten gods. Gothic spires pierced low clouds. Stone gargoyles leered from every corner. Windows glowed with candlelight that seemed older than electricity. It looked like a place where fairy tales went to die. Where? Mira's voice emerged as a whisper. What did you do? Brought you home. Soren released her hand, leaving her skin tingling where he'd touched. Or rather, brought you to mine. The gates swung open without anyone touching them. Mira's survival instincts finally caught up with her compassion. You're not human. No. He walked forward, expecting her to follow. I haven't been human for a very long time. She didn't move. What are you? Soren paused at the threshold, half turned so moonlight carved his profile into sharp relief. When he smiled, his canines were too long, too sharp. The monster parents warn their children about, he said quietly. The nightmare that hunts in darkness. The thing you should have run from the moment you saw me. Vampire. The word crashed through her mind like thunder. Every horror story she'd ever heard, every warning about strange men and dark places, every rational thought screamed at her to flee. But his eyes held only sadness, and he'd called this place home. If you wanted to hurt me, Mira said slowly, you would have done it already. Would I? Soren's expression became unreadable. Perhaps I'm simply more patient than other predators. Or perhaps you're lonely. The word struck him like a physical blow. His composure cracked for half a second, just long enough for her to glimpse the aching emptiness beneath. Then the mask returned. Loneliness is the least of my problems. He turned away. But you're cold, and arguing philosophy in the snow seems inefficient. Come inside. I promise you'll survive the night. Not exactly reassuring, but Mira's teeth were chattering so hard she bit her tongue. Her blood bloomed copper bright in her mouth. Soren went rigid. His nostrils flared. Inside. Now. The command cracked like a whip. Mira ran. The entrance hall stole her breath. Marble floors reflected a chandelier dripping with crystals. Twin staircases curved, upward like ivory ribs. Portraits lined the walls, men and women in antique clothing, their eyes too knowing, their beauty too perfect. All of them watched her. Guest chambers are on the 3rd floor. Soren's voice came from behind her, carefully distant. I'll have Elise prepare a room. You'll find clothing, food, everything you need. Elise? My housekeeper. A woman materialized from the shadows, middle-aged, severe, with silver streaking her dark hair. Her eyes were the same storm gray as Soren's, also vampire. Another stray? Elise's tone was acid. Your Majesty, the council will. The council has no authority here. Soren's voice dropped to a register that made the chandelier tremble. This is my domain. She is under my protection. Prepare the rose suite. Elise's mouth thinned, but she inclined her head. As you command. She glided away, moving with the same unnatural grace. Majesty. The word echoed in Mira's skull. You're a king, she breathed. Soren finally looked at her, and the weight of centuries pressed down like atmosphere. Now I'm just a man in exile, clinging to old titles in an empty house. Why exile? Because I made enemies of those stronger than myself. His smile was bitter. Because I believed mercy was strength, not weakness. Because I refused to rule through fear. The loneliness in his words cut deeper than any blade. Mira stepped closer, ignoring every warning bell in her head. Then you're not a monster. Monsters don't doubt themselves. You don't know what I've done. I know you didn't have to save me. Soren's gaze dropped to her mouth, still bleeding slightly from her bitten tongue. Hunger flashed across his face, raw and desperate. Then he turned away. Sleep, Mira. Tomorrow you can decide if staying was a mistake. He vanished into shadow before she could respond. Mira stood alone in the vast hall, surrounded by the weight of centuries and the echo of his footsteps fading into silence. A clock, somewhere, struck 3. She climbed the stairs toward whatever waited in the rose suite, each step taking her deeper into a world that shouldn't exist. Behind her, in the darkness, something whispered her name. Chapter 3. Blood and Roses. The rose suite lived up to its name. Crimson wallpaper bloomed with gilded thorns. A 4-poster bed dominated the space, draped in silk the color of arterial spray. Fresh roses, impossibly fresh for winter, overflowed from crystal vases on every surface. They smelled like funerals and romance. Mira touched one petal. It trembled beneath her finger, soft as skin. The master grows them himself. She spun around. Elise stood in the doorway, arms full of clothing. Her expression remained neutral, but her eyes dissected Mira with surgical precision. In winter? Mira asked. He has particular talents. Elise set the clothes on an antique chair. These should fit. Bathe, dress, then come to the dining hall. You need to eat. I'm not really hungry. You're hypothermic and malnourished. Elise's tone brooked no argument. You'll eat, or I'll force feed you. His Majesty would be displeased if his charity resulted in your death. With that cheerful thought, she left. The bathroom was marble and gold. Water filled the clawfoot tub without anyone turning the taps hot, scented with lavender and something darker. Mira stripped off her frozen clothes, her fingers clumsy with cold and shock. The water burned. She sank into it anyway, gasping as sensation returned to her limbs. Pins and needles became agony, became relief. Steam rose around her like ghosts. She'd given her blanket to a vampire king. The absurdity made her laugh, a sound somewhere between hysteria and wonder. The clothes Elise left were Victorian, a high-necked blouse, velvet skirt, everything tailored perfectly despite Elise never taking measurements. Mira dressed slowly, her reflection in the mirror strange and ethereal. She looked like someone from a portrait, someone who belonged here. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. Candlelight guided her through corridors that twisted like arteries. Mira passed rooms filled with books older than countries, weapons that could end dynasties, mirrors that reflected nothing at all. The dining hall waited at the corridor's end. Soren sat at the head of a table long enough to seat 40. Only one other place was set directly across from him. Candlelight painted his face in shadow and gold, emphasizing the inhuman perfection of his features. He'd changed clothes. Now he wore black silk that made him look like midnight given form. You came. He sounded genuinely surprised. You invited me. Mira approached the chair, suddenly self-conscious. Would have been rude to refuse. Most mortals consider rudeness preferable to dining with vampires. Most mortals probably haven't frozen to death in alleys. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Fair point. The food appeared without servants, roasted meat, fresh bread, wine dark as blood. Mira's stomach clenched with hunger so fierce it hurt. Eat, Soren said quietly. Please. She didn't need to be told twice. The first bite nearly made her weep. Rich, savory, perfect. She'd forgotten food could taste like anything but ash and desperation. Soren watched her eat with an expression she couldn't name. Not quite hunger, not quite sadness, something older than both. You're not eating, she said between bites. I have different dietary requirements. Right, blood. Mira set down her fork. When did you last feed? That's not... You're pale. Weak. That's why you were dying in the alley. She met his gaze steadily. You're starving. Soren's jaw tightened. My problems are not your concern. You made them my concern when you brought me here. Mira pushed her plate aside. Why were you in that alley? Hunting. For what? For someone who hurt one of my people. His voice dropped to frost. I found him. Ended. Pim. But his companions ambushed me with silver blades. By the time I escaped, the sun was rising and I had nowhere safe to shelter. So you crawled into an alley to die. So I crawled into an alley to wait for nightfall. His fingers drummed the table, the first nervous gesture she'd seen from him. I didn't expect anyone to find me. Certainly didn't expect mercy. And now you're too weak to hunt again. I'll manage. How? Mira leaned forward. From what I understand, vampires need blood to survive. You're in no condition to hunt, and you have enemies actively searching for you. So how, exactly, will you manage? Soren stood abruptly. This conversation is over. I know what you're offering. He moved faster than thought, appearing beside her chair in a heartbeat. And I'm refusing. I will not feed from you, Mira. Not now. Not ever. Why not? Because you gave me kindness. The words tore out of him raw and desperate. Because you saw something dying and offered warmth. Because in 300 years, you're the first person to look at me and see someone worth saving. He gripped the chair back hard enough to splinter wood. I won't repay that by making you pray. The silence stretched between them like a bridge. Mira stood slowly, closing the distance until she could feel the unnatural cold radiating from his skin. What if I don't feel like pray? She whispered. Soren's control cracked. His eyes flared silver bright. You don't understand what you're asking. Then explain it to me. His hand rose, trembling to cup her face. The touch was gossamer soft, reverent. Blood is more than food for us, he said hoarsely. It's memory, truth, the deepest part of yourself, laid bare. To feed from someone is to know them completely, every fear, every desire, every secret they've buried. And that scares you? Terrifies me. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Because what if you're as beautiful inside as you are outside? What if I taste your known soul and find something worth dying for? His laugh was broken glass. I've lived too long to risk hope again. Mira turned her head, pressing her lips to his palm. Risk it anyway, she breathed against his skin. Soren shuddered. Then Elise's voice shattered the moment like crystal. Your Majesty, the Crimson Court has breached the eastern perimeter. Soren's face became a mask. How many? 12, led by Casimir himself. Perfect. He released Mira, stepping back into the role of king-like armor. Get her to the catacombs. If I don't return, you'll return. Elise's certainty was absolute. You always do. Soren looked at Mira one last time. His eyes held apology and hunger in equal measure. Then he vanished into shadow. Mira stood alone in the candlelight, her face still warm from his touch. Outside, something howled. The hunt had found them. Chapter 4. The Crimson Court. The catacombs smelled of earth and eternity. Elise led Mira down stone stairs that spiraled into darkness. Each step worn smooth by centuries of feet. Torches ignited as they passed, casting shadows that danced like tortured souls. What is the Crimson Court? Mira's voice echoed off ancient stone. The ones who rule our kind. Elise's jaw was tight. The ones Soren defied. Why? Because they feed without consent. Hunt humans like cattle. Treat mortality as a commodity to be bought and sold. Elise stopped before a heavy iron door. Soren believed vampires could be better. Could coexist rather than conquer. The court considered that weakness. So they exiled him. They tried to execute him. Elise's smile was sharp. He survived. Fled here. To his family's ancestral estate. They've been trying to finish the job ever since. The door swung open onto a chamber lined with coffins, some stone, some crystal, all impossibly old. Moonlight filtered through cracks in the ceiling, painting everything silver. Stay here. Elise pressed a key into Mira's hand. If Soren falls, this will open the tunnel to the surface. Follow it east until you reach the city. I'm not leaving him. You're mortal, fragile, a liability in battle. Elise's expression softened fractionally. He brought you here to save you. Don't make his sacrifice meaningless. Before Mira could argue, Elise vanished up the stairs. The silence pressed down like water. Mira clutched the key hard enough to leave imprints. Above her, muffled crashes shook dust from the ceiling. Shouting. The distinctive sound of steel meeting flesh. Soren was fighting. Dying. And she was hiding like a child. She'd survived 3 winters on the streets. Had fought off men twice her size. Had learned that sometimes survival meant being willing to get your hands bloody. Mira turned toward the stairs. A voice froze her mid-step. Well, what do we have here? A man stood in the shadows, beautiful as poisoned fruit, with copper hair and eyes like fresh wounds. He wore crimson velvet and smiled like sin itself. A mortal girl in the fallen king's catacombs. He glided forward, each step deliberate. How deliciously tragic. Mira backed away. Who are you? Casimir, First blade of the Crimson Court. He tilted his head, studying her like a hawk studies prey. And you are the bleeding heart who saved our exile. How terribly noble. Soren will kill you. Soren is currently bleeding out on his own marble floors. Casimir's smile widened. Silver is so effective when properly applied. By the time his wounds heal, if they heal, you'll be long gone. I'm not going anywhere with you. I wasn't asking. He moved faster than thought. Mira dodged, instinct overriding fear. She grabbed a torch from the wall, swinging it in a wide arc. Flames painted Casimir's face in hellish light. He laughed, delighted, surprised. Oh, you have fire. Marvelous. I was worried you'd be boring. Disappointed? Mira kept the torch between them. Enchanted. His eyes glittered with genuine amusement. I can see why. Soren kept you. But alas, I have orders. The court wants him broken, and taking his toys seems efficient. He lunged. Mira thrust the torch forward. Casimir twisted mid-air, but flame caught his sleeve. The fabric ignited instantly, spreading faster than natural fire should. His scream was inhuman. The distraction gave her 3 seconds. Mira ran not toward the stairs, but deeper into the catacombs. Her footsteps echoed like heartbeats. Behind her, Casimir's rage shook the foundations. You can't hide forever. The tunnel branched. Left, right, straight ahead, all identical in darkness. Mira chose randomly, her breath sawing in her throat. A dead end. She spun around. Casimir stood at the tunnel's entrance, his burned arm already healing. Clever girl. Wrong direction, but clever. He advanced slowly, savoring her terror. Did Soren tell you what happens when our kind loses control? When hunger overrides reason? Mira pressed her back against cold stone. He wouldn't feed from you, I know. Such noble restraint. Casimir stopped inches away. But nobility is exhausting, and when the alternative is death. He leaned in, inhaling deeply. You smell like roses and fear. Intoxicating. His hand closed around her throat, then silver light exploded through the tunnel. Soren emerged from shadow like vengeance incarnate. Blood stained his shirt. Silver burns marked his skin. His eyes blazed with fury that transcended humanity. Release. Her. Casimir turned, dragging Mira with him. Ah, the fallen king crawls from his grave. How dramatic. Last warning. Or what? You can barely stand. Casimir's grip tightened. Face it, Soren. You're finished. The court has won, and this sweet little mortal will watch you die before I deliver her to them as proof of your weakness. Mira drove Elise's key into his eye. Casimir shrieked, his grip released. Mira fell, gasping. Soren moved. What happened next transcended violence. It was poetry written in blood precise, brutal, absolute. Soren's hands found Casimir's throat. Silver light flared. The sound of breaking bone echoed like cathedral bells. Casimir collapsed, twitching. If you return, Soren said softly, I will make your death last decades. Then he was kneeling beside Mira, hands trembling as they checked her for injuries. Are you hurt? Did he? I'm fine. Mira caught his hands, stilling them. You came? Always. The word was a vow. I will always come for you. Above them, the battle sounds had ceased. Elise appeared at the tunnel entrance. The court has retreated. For now, Soren nodded, not looking away from Mira. Casualties? 3 of ours injured, none dead. Elise's gaze moved between them. She fought well, Your Majesty. She shouldn't have had to fight at all. No, Mira said firmly. But I did, and I survived, because you taught me mercy doesn't mean weakness. Something cracked in Soren's expression, the careful control he'd maintained for 300 years, finally breaking under the weight of her words. Mira. She kissed him. His lips were cold silk, tasting of moonlight and blood and desperate hope. He froze for half a heartbeat, then surged forward, one hand tangling in her hair while the other pulled her close. The kiss deepened, turned hungry. Mira felt his fangs scrape her lower lip, not enough to break skin, just enough to promise danger. She didn't pull away. When they finally separated, both were shaking. The court will return, Elise said quietly, in greater numbers. Soren stood, pulling Mira with him. Then we prepare. Fortify, fight. Or, Mira squeezed his hand, we change the game. Both vampires looked at her. The court expects you to hide, she continued, to wait for them to overwhelm you. What if you go to them instead? Suicide, Elise said flatly. Strategy. Mira's mind raced. You're not weak, Soren. You're outnumbered. But if we expose the court's cruelty, show the world what they really are, the world doesn't care what happens to vampires. Then make them care. Mira looked at him steadily. You said you wanted vampires to be better. Prove it. Show everyone that mercy is stronger than fear. Soren stared at her like she was either a miracle or madness. Then he laughed raw, genuine, surprised. You're magnificent, he breathed. I'm practical. But she smiled. So, will you fight? Soren pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. With you beside me? His voice was fierce. I'll fight until eternity burns. Chapter 5. The Blood Oath. Dawn approached when they emerged from the catacombs. The entrance hall looked like a battlefield. Shattered crystal glittered across marble floors. Burn marks scarred the walls. 3 vampires. Soren's people sat slumped on the stairs, being tended by others with silver needles and crimson thread. All of them stopped when Soren appeared. The silence was absolute. Then, as one, they knelt. Your Majesty, said a woman, with white blonde hair and scars crossing her throat. We await your command. Soren helped Mira down the final step, his hand steady at her back. Rise, Katya. All of you, rise. They obeyed, but their eyes remained fixed on him. Waiting, desperate for direction. The Crimson Court will return, Soren said quietly. In greater numbers, with more silver, more fire, more cruelty. They want my head, and they'll burn this house to ash to claim it. Murmurs rippled through the gathered vampires. So we have 3 choices. Soren's voice carried absolute authority. Flee and scatter, hoping they lose interest. Fortify here and die slowly. Or, he paused. We take the fight to them. Shock, then excitement, swift and sharp. You want to attack the court directly? Katya's eyes blazed. Your Majesty, that's madness, Elise finished. The court has 100 vampires. We have 12. 13. Mira stepped forward. I'm fighting too. Every vampire in the room turned to stare. Absolutely not, Soren said flatly. You don't give me orders. I do when it's for your safety. And who decides my safety? Mira crossed her arms. You keep treating me like fragile porcelain. I stabbed Casimir in the eye and lived. I think I've earned a voice here. Katya laughed, surprised and delighted. She has spirit, Your Majesty. She has a death wish, Soren muttered. Mira moved closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. What I have is understanding. The court treats mortals as cattle because vampires let them. But if mortals and vampires stand together as equals, that changes everything. And if you die in the process? Then I die fighting for something that matters. She met his gaze steadily. Instead of freezing in an alley forgotten, the words hit him like a blade. Soren looked at his people, tired, wounded, but unbroken. Then at Mira, with her fierce eyes and ridiculous courage. Very well, he turned to address the room. We need allies. Other exiles, scattered vampires who've grown tired of the court's tyranny. We need information, the court's strongholds, their numbers, their weaknesses, and we need leverage, Elise added. Something to force the court to negotiate. What could we possibly offer them? Katya asked. Mira spoke before thinking. Me. The room exploded into objections. Absolutely not. Your Majesty, this is over my dead body. Silence. Soren's command cracked like thunder. Everyone froze. He turned to Mira, his expression unreadable. Explain. The court wants to break you, Mira said calmly. Taking me does that. So we use their strategy against them. Let them think they've won. Then ambush them when they're distracted, Katya breathed. Your Majesty, it could work. It's too dangerous. Everything is dangerous. Mira touched his arm. But we're stronger together than apart. That's what you taught me. Soren looked at her for 3 heartbeats. 4. Then he sighed, a sound heavy, with resignation and reluctant respect. You're going to be the death of me. Technically, that already happened. A surprised laugh burst from him. Fair point. Your Majesty? A young vampire approached hesitantly, barely more than a boy, with dark skin and eyes like copper coins. I know someone, an exile in the Eastern Quarter. She might help, if approached correctly. Her name? Lysandra. She was court once, left after he swallowed, after they forced her to kill her mortal lover to prove loyalty. The room went cold. She'll want revenge, Soren said quietly. She'll want justice, the boy corrected. There's a difference. Smart. Mira studied him. What's your name? Tobias, mistress. Don't call me that, just Mira. She smiled. Can you arrange a meeting with Lysandra? Yes. Maybe, if she doesn't kill me on sight. Take Katya. Soren's tone brooked no argument. And be careful. The court has eyes everywhere. Tobias nodded and hurried off, Katya following. The other vampires dispersed, returning to repairs and preparations. Soon, only Soren, Elise, and Mira remained. You realize this plan is insane? Elise said. Completely, Soren agreed. Good. Elise's smile was sharp. I was worried you'd gone soft. She left them alone. Mira watched candlelight paint Soren's face in shadow. You're hurt. I'll heal. Let me help. Mira. She was already pulling him toward a chair, her touch gentle but insistent. Silver burns marked his throat, his wrists anywhere Casimir's blades had struck. They wept blood that looked black in the dim light. This is going to scar, Mira said softly. I have worse scars. But he let her tend him, let her careful fingers clean wounds with water someone had left behind. Tell me about them. The scars? The 300 years. Soren was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I was born in 1723. Human, ordinary, unremarkable. Died at 23 when plague swept through my village. His eyes went distant. I woke 3 nights later, starving and terrified. My maker Isabeau, she taught me control, compassion, showed me that immortality didn't require cruelty. What happened to her? The court executed her for harboring dangerous philosophies. His jaw tightened. I inherited her title, her lands, her dream of a better world for our kind, spent 2 centuries trying to build it, and the court destroyed it. They called me weak, soft, said mercy was a disease that would doom us all. Soren looked at her, his eyes ancient and tired. Maybe they were right. They weren't. Mira cupped his face. You're not weak. You're the only one strong enough to choose kindness when cruelty would be easier. He turned his head, pressing a kiss to her palm. You see the best in everyone, don't you? I see the truth in you. The hunger in his eyes flared not for blood, but something deeper. Rower. Mira. Her name was a plea. If I start something with you, I won't be able to stop. Do you understand? Vampires mate for eternity. Once I claim you, then claim me. He shuddered. You don't know what you're asking. I know exactly what I'm asking. She leaned closer. I'm asking you to trust me the way I trust you, to believe that I'm strong enough to stand beside you, to let me choose this. Even knowing it means eternity? Especially knowing that. Soren's control snapped. He pulled her into his lap, kissing her with desperate hunger. Mira gasped against his mouth, her hands tangling in his hair. His fangs scraped her lip harder this time, drawing a single drop of blood. He froze. Don't stop, she breathed. Mira. She bit her own lip deliberately, making it bleed more. Soren's eyes blazed silver. You're going to kill me. No. She smiled against his mouth. I'm going to save you. Then she kissed him again, letting her blood slide between their lips. Not enough to feed, just enough to taste, just enough to promise. Soren groaned, his control fracturing completely. He licked the wound closed with delicate precision, then pulled her closer. If we do this, he whispered against her throat, there's no going back. Good. Mira tilted her head, exposing her neck. I'm tired of going back. His fangs pierced her skin, a sharp sting, then pleasure so intense it bordered on pain. Mira cried out, her nails digging into his shoulders. Connection slammed through her. Suddenly she could feel everything, his hunger, his fear, his desperate love for her. Memories flooded her mind, centuries of loneliness, battle, betrayal, hope. She saw Isabeau teaching a young Soren mercy, saw the court's execution, saw his exile, his despair, his slow acceptance of eternal solitude. Then she saw herself through his eyes, covered in frost, offering a blanket with trembling hands. The shock of receiving kindness when he'd expected indifference. The dawning realization that she saw him, truly saw him, not as monster or king, but as someone worthy of warmth. She saw how he'd fallen in love in that single moment, how he'd been falling ever since. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Soren pulled back, his fangs retracting. Blood, her blood stained his lips. "Are you hurt?" "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." She kissed him silent. "I love you too," she whispered against his mouth. He went still. "You felt that?" "I felt everything." Mira pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "Your pain, your hope, your certainty that I was too good for someone like you." She smiled through her tears. "You're an idiot." Soren laughed, startled, joyful, free. "Probably, definitely." She wiped blood from his mouth with her thumb. "But you're my idiot now." "Forever?" "Forever." He kissed her again, soft and reverent. The world outside could burn. The court could come. None of it mattered while she was in his arms. Then Tobias burst through the door. "Your Majesty." He was panting, his eyes wild. Lysandra agreed to meet. "But there's a condition." Soren sat up straighter, keeping Mira close. "What condition?" Tobias swallowed. "She wants to meet Mira. Says she'll only ally with someone willing to risk a mortal in their war." Silence. Then Mira stood. "When?" "Tomorrow night. The ruins outside the city. Then we have a day to prepare." She looked at Soren. "Think you can teach me to fight in 24 hours? He stared at her like she was insane. Then he smiled, sharp, proud, fierce. "I can teach you to survive," he said. "The rest, you'll have to improvise." Mira grinned. "My specialty." Chapter 6. The Exile's Gift. Night fell like a mercy. Mira stood in the estate's courtyard, her breath forming clouds in frozen air. Her body ached from 12 hours of training, Soren teaching her vampire weaknesses, escape tactics, how to move in shadows and strike without warning. She'd been terrible at first. Now she was merely mediocre. "Again," Soren commanded from across the stone circle. Mira lunged, silver, blade in hand borrowed from Elise, consecrated with vampire blood. Soren sidestepped effortlessly, catching her wrist mid-strike. "You're telegraphing," he said. "I see the attack 3 movements before you make it. Because you're 300 years old. Lysandra is 500. He released her. "And she won't be gentle." Mira wiped sweat from her forehead. Why did she leave the court? Soren's expression darkened. Because they discovered her lover, a mortal doctor named Elias. The court gave her a choice. Kill him herself and prove loyalty. Or they'd kill them both. Slowly, what did she do? Made it quick, painless. His voice was hollow. Then she burned down the court's eastern stronghold on her way out. They've been trying to execute her ever since. She'll want the court destroyed. She'll want them suffering. Soren met her gaze. Lysandra isn't interested in mercy, Mira. She's interested in justice through blood. Can you blame her? No. He looked away. But I can fear what aligning with her might cost. Mira crossed the distance between them, her hand finding his. We don't have to do this. Yes, we do. Soren squeezed her fingers. The court won't stop. They'll keep coming until I'm dead or broken. The only way forward is through them. Then we go through them together. He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. I should never have let you into my world. You didn't let me. I chose it. Even knowing what it costs. Especially knowing that. Mira tilted her head back, meeting his ancient eyes. Because the alternative is going back to that alley. Freezing alone, dying with nothing and no one. Her voice cracked. I'd rather burn beside you than survive without you. Soren kissed her soft, desperate, complete. When they separated, his eyes gleamed silver in the moonlight. The meeting is in 2 hours. Are you ready? Absolutely not. He smiled. Perfect. Neither am I. The ruins had been a cathedral once. Now, shattered stone reached toward stars like broken prayers. Moonlight painted everything bone white. Wind whispered through empty windows, carrying the scent of ash and forgotten hymns. Mira shivered despite her borrowed coat. Soren stood beside her, every line of his body taut with readiness. Katya and Tobias flanked them, weapons hidden but accessible. Elise had stayed behind to guard the estate. She's here, Soren said quietly. A figure materialized from shadow. Lysandra was sculpture, come to life, all sharp angles and lethal grace. Her hair fell in black waves past her waist. Her eyes were the color of old amber, glowing faintly in the darkness. She wore leather and steel, every inch the warrior. She looked at Mira the way a hawk looks at prey. So, Lysandra's voice was smoke and silk. You're the mortal who captured the fallen king's heart. I'm the woman who helped him survive. Mira corrected. Semantics. Lysandra circled them slowly. Tobias says you want to destroy the Crimson Court. Bold, suicidal, intriguing. We want to expose them, Soren said. Show the world what they truly are. The world doesn't care what vampires do to each other. They will if vampires and mortals stand together. Lysandra stopped, her expression unreadable. You think allying with humans will save you? They fear us, hate us, would exterminate us if they could. Some would, Mira agreed. But not all. There are people, powerful people, who believe in cooperation over conflict. Scientists studying vampire biology for medical advances, politicians seeking alliances, artists fascinated by immortality. She stepped forward. The court keeps vampires isolated because fear maintains their power. But what if we showed another way? Naive. Lysandra's smile was bitter. The court killed the man I loved, for daring to suggest something similar. I know. Mira's voice softened. Tobias told me about Elias. I'm sorry. Lysandra's composure cracked. Sorry? You think sorry helps? I held him. While he died. Whispered promises I couldn't keep. Watched the light leave his eyes and knew I'd done it. My hands. My choice. My eternal damnation. Her voice broke. Don't you dare offer me pity. I'm not. Mira moved closer, ignoring Soren's warning hand. I'm offering you justice. Revenge. A chance to make his death mean something. By fighting beside mortals? By proving Elias was right. Mira met those ancient eyes steadily. By showing that love between mortals and vampires isn't weakness, it's the strongest weapon we have against those who rule through fear. Silence stretched like wire. Then Lysandra laughed, broken, surprised, genuine. You're either brilliant or insane, she said. Both, Soren muttered. Lysandra studied Mira for 3 heartbeats. 4. Then she nodded. I'll help. Not because I believe in your idealistic crusade, but because watching the court burn will honor Elias's memory. I'll take it. Mira extended her hand. Lysandra stared, at the offered hand like it was a trap. Then, slowly, she shook it. Her grip was ice and iron. The court's stronghold is 15 miles north, Lysandra said. Gothic fortress, built on consecrated ground for irony's sake. 50 vampires minimum, all trained warriors. They're expecting you to hide. An attack would catch them off guard. Not an attack, Mira said. A negotiation. Everyone stared at her. Excuse me? Lysandra's tone was acid. We offer the court a deal. Soren surrenders himself in exchange for a public trial. Full transparency, mortals present, documentation of crimes, proof of their cruelty. They'll never agree. They will if we make it appealing. Mira's mind raced. The court wants legitimacy. Wants to be seen as rulers, not monsters. A public trial gives them that if they think they'll win. And when they realize we're exposing them, by then it'll be too late. Mira looked at Soren. We'll have witnesses. Evidence. Enough to sway public opinion. Public opinion won't stop vampire claws, Katya said flatly. No, but it'll stop resources. Funding. Political protection. Mira's voice grew stronger. The court relies on secrecy. Expose them, and they lose everything. Soren stared at her like she'd just rewritten reality. It's insane, he breathed. Completely. It might actually work. Maybe. He pulled her close, kissing her hard. You magnificent, terrifying woman. Lysandra cleared her throat. As touching as this is, we have logistics to plan. Tobias, you'll need to contact the mortal journalists who investigate supernatural phenomena. Katya, gather evidence, financial records, survivor testimony, anything proving the court's crimes. And me? Soren asked. You prepare to die. Lysandra's smile was sharp. Because that's what they'll try to do. And you need to survive long enough for this mad plan to work. I've survived 300 years of trying to kill me. This time you'll have help. Mira squeezed his hand. And this time you're not facing it alone. Soren looked at her with such fierce love it stole her breath. Then Tobias screamed. They spun around. Casimir stood at the ruins entrance. one eye covered with silver mesh, the other blazing with hatred. Behind him, a dozen court vampires emerged from shadow. How touching, Casimir purred. The Exile planning rebellion. Did you really think we wouldn't notice? Soren pushed Mira behind him. How did you find us? Your boy was followed. Casimir nodded at Tobias, who'd gone pale. Rookie mistake. But don't worry, I'm here to correct all your mistakes. Permanently. Run, Soren told Mira. No, run. The court attacked. What followed was carnage. Katya met the first wave with silver blades, her movements lethal grace. Lysandra fought like vengeance incarnate, ripping through enemies with centuries of rage. Tobias protected Mira, his young strength surprising in its ferocity. Soren faced Casimir directly. They collided in a blur of movement too fast for mortal eyes. Claws met steel. Silver sparked against ancient power. They moved through the ruins like warring gods, destroying everything they touched. Mira watched, helpless, as Soren fought for their future. Then she saw a glint of silver in Casimir's hand. A blade, aimed at Soren's heart while he was distracted. She didn't think. Mira grabbed Tobias's knife and threw herself forward, silver singing as it left her hand. The blade struck true, burying itself in Casimir's shoulder, making him stumble. It was enough. Soren's hand closed around Casimir's throat. I warned you what would happen if you returned. Casimir laughed, blood on his teeth. Kill me. The court will send others. You can't win, Fallen King. You're just delaying the inevitable. Maybe. Soren's grip tightened. But we're delaying it together. He snapped Casimir's neck. The court vampires froze, seeing their leader fall. Then they scattered, vanishing into darkness like smoke. Silence returned, broken only by harsh breathing. Soren turned to Mira. You could have been killed. So could you. I'm already dead. Not to me. She touched his face. Not to me. You're not. He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. They stood like that while moonlight painted ruins silver, and Lysandra watched with something almost like longing in her ancient eyes. The court knows about the trial now, Katya said quietly. Good. Lysandra's smile was sharp. Let them prepare. So will we. Mira looked at the gathered vampires, wounded but unbroken, afraid but determined. They had one chance. One impossible, insane chance to change everything. She just hoped they'd survive long enough to try. Chapter 7. The Price of Truth. The journalist's name was Marcus Chen, and he looked like he'd stepped from the pages of a noir thriller, rumpled suit, tired eyes, notebook perpetually in hand. He sat across from Mira in the estate's library, recording device between them. Let me make sure I understand. Marcus's voice was carefully neutral. You're claiming vampires exist, are governed by a secret court, and that court has committed centuries of atrocities against both humans and their own kind. Yes, Mira said. And you have proof? She slid a folder across the table. Financial records showing the court controlling major corporations, testimony from survivors of their feeding farms, photographs of victims. Her voice hardened. And access to witnesses who'll testify publicly. Marcus opened the folder. His hands started shaking by the third page. Jesus Christ. He looked up, his face pale. If this is real, it's real. Soren emerged from shadow, making Marcus jump. I'm Soren Valerius, former Lord of the Eastern Houses. The court exiled me for refusing to participate in their system. I'm offering you exclusive access to document everything. Why? Marcus's journalistic instincts kicked in. Why expose this now? Because silence is complicity. Soren's tone was measured. The court rules through fear and secrecy. Sunlight is their weakness, both literal and metaphorical. Expose them, and their power crumbles. Or they kill me for trying. They'll try, Lysandra said, appearing beside Soren. We'll make sure they fail. Marcus studied them, 3 vampires and 1 mortal human, united in impossible rebellion. You're asking me to risk my life, my career, my credibility on a story that sounds like fantasy. We're asking you to tell the truth, Mira said quietly. Isn't that what journalists do? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, I need proof beyond documents. I need witnesses. Footage. Something undeniable. You'll have it. Soren met his gaze steadily. In 3 days, the Crimson Court will hold a trial. Public forum, multiple witnesses, full documentation. You'll have access to everything. Why would the court agree to public scrutiny? Because they think they'll win. Mira's smile was sharp. They're expecting a show trial proof of Soren's treason, justification for execution. What they'll get instead is exposure. Marcus leaned back, processing. This is insane. Completely, Mira agreed. Are you in? He should have said no. Every rational instinct probably screamed at him to run. Instead, Marcus Chen nodded. I'm in. He met Mira's gaze. But if this goes sideways, I'm writing one hell of an obituary for all of us. Fair enough. Soren extended his hand. Thank you. They shook mortal and immortal, sealing an alliance that shouldn't exist. After Marcus left, Mira found Soren on the estate's balcony, watching moonlight paint the world silver. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, pressing her cheek to his back. 3 days, she said quietly. 3 days until everything changes. Scared? Terrified. He turned, pulling her close. Not for myself. For you. For what the court might do if we fail. We won't fail. You can't know that. No. Mira looked up at him. But I know we're fighting for something worth dying for. That has to count for something. Soren cupped her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. If something happens to me, nothing will. If something happens, he continued firmly, Lysandra will get you to safety. She's sworn an oath. You'll be protected. I don't want protection. I want you. You can't always have both. The truth of it hung between them like a blade. Mira pulled him down into a kiss, fierce, desperate, complete. His hands tangled in her hair. Her fingers traced the sharp planes of his face, memorizing every angle in case this was the last time. When they separated, both were shaking. I love you, Mira whispered. Whatever happens, remember that. I love you. Soren's voice was raw. In this life and whatever comes after, they stood together under starlight, holding each other while the world prepared to burn. The Crimson Court's stronghold rose like a monument to eternity. Mira stood before its gates 3 nights later, flanked by Soren, Lysandra, and 12 other vampire allies they'd gathered. Marcus Chen and his camera crew hovered nearby, documenting everything. The gates opened. Inside, the court waited. They sat in a circular chamber that descended like an amphitheater. 50 vampires minimum, all ancient, all deadly. At the center sat the court's ruling council, 5 vampires who'd existed since Rome fell. The eldest, a woman with silver hair and eyes like ice, spoke first. Soren Valerius, you stand accused of treason, heresy, and conspiracy against the established order. How do you plead? Soren stepped forward. Guilty of all charges. Gasps rippled through the chamber. However, he continued, I contest that these actions constitute crimes. Rather, they are moral imperatives. His voice carried absolute authority. For 3 centuries, the Crimson Court has ruled through fear, treated mortals as cattle, killed dissenters, built an empire on suffering. I refused to participate. That's not treason, that's conscience. Conscience? The silver-haired woman's smile was cold. How mortal of you. Humanity isn't weakness. Mira stepped forward, her heart pounding. It's strength, and proof of that is standing here, mortal and vampire, united against tyranny. The court's attention fixed on her like a predator spotting prey. And who are you, little mortal? Another council member asked, a man with golden eyes and a voice like poisoned honey. Mira. No last name, no family, no importance to anyone except the man you're trying to execute. She met their gazes steadily. Soren saved me when I was dying, showed me mercy when the world showed none, proved that kindness transcends mortality. How touching. The golden-eyed vampire's smile was sharp. And what makes you think your testimony matters? Because I'm not the only one. Mira gestured to the cameras. The world is watching. Every atrocity you've committed, every life you've taken, it's all documented. Financial records, witness testimony, proof of centuries of cruelty. Silence. Then the silver-haired woman laughed. You think mortals care? They've always known we exist, child. They simply choose to look away. Then we make them look. Lysandra's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. We make them see what you really are. Not rulers, not gods, just monsters drunk on power. The court's composure cracked. You dare. I dare because you took everything from me. Lysandra's rage exploded. You killed Elias. Made me watch him die, then expected gratitude for sparing my worthless existence. Her eyes blazed. Well, I'm done being grateful. I'm done being silent. And I'm done letting you pretend mercy is weakness." The silver-haired woman stood. "You will be executed for this insolence. Try it." Soren's power flooded the chamber, ancient, terrible, absolute. "Touch her. Touch any of them, and I'll tear this stronghold down stone by stone." The threat wasn't empty. The court hesitated. Then the golden-eyed vampire smiled. "Very well. A trial by combat, then. As tradition dictates. You against our champion. Winner takes all your life, your allies, your ridiculous crusade. Accepted." Soren's voice was steady. "No!" Mira grabbed his arm. "You're not. I have to." He turned to her, his eyes ancient and tired. "It's the only way forward. Then let me fight beside you. You've done enough." Soren cupped her face. "You've given me hope. Purpose. Love I thought I'd never feel again. Let me protect that. Please." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "You better win. Always." He kissed her soft, brief, eternal. Then he stepped into the arena. The court's champion emerged from shadow. He was massive, 7 feet of muscle and rage, with scars covering every inch of visible skin. His eyes were black pits. His smile showed teeth filed to points. "I am Victor," he rumbled, "and I am your death." Soren bowed slightly. "We'll see." They charged. What followed was brutality incarnate. Victor fought like a berserker, all power. No finesse. Devastating when he connected. Soren moved like water, dodging, redirecting, wearing him down through precision rather than force. Blood painted the arena floor. Mira watched, her nails digging into her palms hard enough to draw blood. Beside her, Marcus's cameras captured everything, every blow, every dodge, every moment of impossible violence. Victor's fist caught Soren's ribs. Bone cracked. Soren stumbled. Victor lunged for the kill. Soren twisted, silver blade appearing in his hand. He drove it through Victor's heart in one smooth motion. The champion fell. Silence absolute. Then Soren collapsed. "No!" Mira ran forward, catching him before he hit the ground. Blood soaked his shirt, too much blood, even for a vampire. "I'm fine," he gasped. "You're dying. I'm winning." He smiled, blood on his teeth. "Look." The court sat frozen, defeated. Their champion dead, their challenger, triumphant, and cameras broadcasting everything to the watching world. The silver-haired woman's expression was carved from ice. "It seems you've won, Soren Valerius." "Not me." Soren struggled to sit, leaning on Mira. "We've won. Mortal and vampire together. Proof that your way isn't the only way. This changes nothing. It changes everything." Marcus stepped forward, holding up his tablet. "This broadcast has 10 million views and climbing. Every news outlet is covering it. The world is watching, and they're seeing exactly what you are." The court's composure shattered. In the chaos that followed, Lysandra appeared at Mira's side. "We need to move. Now." They carried Soren out, leaving the court's stronghold behind. As they emerged into moonlight, Mira looked back one last time. The court watched from their throne room windows, ancient, powerful, and for the first time in centuries, afraid. They'd won. Now they just had to survive the victory. Chapter 8. The wound that binds. Soren's blood stained everything. They'd returned to the estate, but his wounds refused to heal. "Silver poisoning," Lysandra said grimly. Victor's blade had been consecrated, blessed by priests and cursed by witches, designed to kill even the eldest vampires. "He's dying," Elise said flatly. They'd gathered in Soren's chambers, Mira, Lysandra, Elise, Katya, and Tobias. Soren lay unconscious on his bed, skin gray as ash, breath shallow and wrong. "There has to be something," Mira's voice cracked. "There is." Lysandra looked at her steadily. "But you won't like it." "I don't care. Tell me." "A blood bond. Full exchange. Not just feeding." Lysandra's expression was grave. "Your blood carries life mortality's spark. Combined with his vampire essence, it could neutralize the poison. But it would bind us," Mira finished. "Forever. More than that." Elise stepped forward. "You'd be neither mortal nor vampire. Something between. Changed. No longer fully human." The room held its breath. Mira looked at Soren's face, beautiful even in death's grip, the face she'd fallen in love with in a frozen alley. She thought about cold nights alone, about kindness given freely, About a man who'd chosen mercy when cruelty would have been easier. She thought about forever. How do we do it? Mira asked. Are you certain? Lysandra's tone was surprisingly gentle. This isn't reversible. Nothing worth having ever is. Mira sat beside Soren, taking his cold hand. Tell me what to do. Lysandra produced a silver knife. Cut your palm. Let the blood fall on his wounds. Then drink from him not his blood, but his essence. The exchange will trigger transformation. Mira nodded. Her hand was steady as she pressed blade to flesh. Pain flared. Blood welled dark red, mortal, fragile. She held her palm over Soren's chest, letting crimson drops fall on silver burns. His skin hissed, then began to heal. Slowly at first, then faster. Color returned to his face. His breathing deepened, but he didn't wake. Now, the exchange, Lysandra said quietly. Bite your wrist. Let him drink. Mira hesitated. This was it, the point of no return. Accept this, and she'd never be fully human again. Never age normally. Never die easily. Never be free of him. The thought should have terrified her. It felt like coming home. Mira bit her wrist hard enough to draw blood. The taste of copper and fear filled her mouth. Then she pressed the wound to Soren's lips. Drink, she whispered. Come back to me. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then Soren's throat worked. He drank. Power exploded through the room. Mira gasped as electricity raced up her arm, spreading like wildfire. Her veins burned. Her heart stuttered. For one terrible moment, she thought she was dying. Then the burning became warmth. Connection slammed into her deeper than the first feeding, more intimate than any kiss. She felt Soren's consciousness brush against hers, his essence twining with her. Mortality. Past and present merged. His memories became hers. Her emotions became his. She saw everything. 300 years of existence compressed into heartbeats. His mortal life, brief, unremarkable, ended by plague. His transformation terrifying, agonizing, beautiful. Isabeau's teachings, the court's betrayal, centuries of loneliness broken by one mortal girl, offering a blanket in the snow. She saw how he'd loved her from that first moment, how he loved her still, how he'd love her until stars burned out. Tears streamed down her face. Then Soren's eyes opened. They blazed silver bright, but something mortal flickered behind them. Human warmth and vampire cold. He looked at her, really looked, and his expression cracked into wonder. Mira. Her name was a prayer. What did you do? Saved you. She smiled through tears. What you've been doing for me since that alley. He sat up slowly, touching her face like she might disappear. You're changed. So are you. It was true. His skin held color now, not the marble pallor of full vampires, but something in between. Living and undead, mortal and eternal. The bond worked, Lysandra breathed. You're something new, something better, Mira said firmly. She looked at Soren. Can you feel it? Everything. His voice was odd. Your heart, your thoughts, your soul twined with mine. He pulled her close. I'll never be alone again. Neither will I. They kissed, and power surged between them, mortal life meeting immortal death, creating something neither fully understood. When they separated, both were glowing faintly. Elise cleared her throat. As touching as this is, we have practical concerns. The court won't accept defeat quietly. Let them come. Soren stood, pulling Mira with him. We have proof of their crimes. Allies in the mortal world. And he looked at her with fierce pride. Something they've never had. True unity between human and vampire. Plus Marcus's broadcast went viral. Tobias added eagerly. 50 million views. Every major news outlet is covering it. Some governments are calling for investigations into vampire activities. The court's secrecy is broken, Katya said with satisfaction. They can't hide anymore, which makes them desperate. Lysandra's expression was grim. Desperate predators are the most dangerous kind. Then we don't give them time to regroup. Mira's mind raced. We push forward. Form councils, vampire and mortal representatives working together. Create laws, establish accountability, build a system based on consent rather than fear. Everyone stared at her. You want to rebuild vampire society, Elise said slowly. In 3 days. I want to start. Mira looked around the room. We've proven change is possible. Now we make it permanent. Who's with us? Silence. Then Lysandra smiled, genuine, surprised, hopeful. Elias would have loved you. I wish I could have met him. You have his courage. Lysandra bowed her head. I'm for him. For the future he died believing in. As am I, Katya said. You've given me hope, mortal girl. I'll follow where it leads. One by one, the others pledged support. Soren watched Mira with such love, it bordered on worship. You're going to change the world. We're going to change it. She squeezed his hand. Together. Outside. Dawn approached the first sunrise Soren could face without fear, sheltered by their bond. They walked to the balcony, watching light paint the sky in shades of fire. I dreamed of this, Soren said quietly. During those centuries alone. Dreamed of dawn without burning, of love without loss, of hope that lasted beyond one mortal lifetime. Now you have it. Now we have it. He pulled her close. Forever, Mira. Not because you're bound to me, but because you chose to be. She leaned into him, watching sunlight touch their intertwined hands, mortal and immortal, separate and together. Forever sounds perfect, she whispered. And for the first time in 300 years, Soren believed in tomorrow. Chapter 9. The court's final move. Peace lasted exactly 7 days. Then the Crimson Court struck. It happened during the first official council meeting. 20 vampires and 20 mortals gathered in the estate's renovated hall to draft legislation governing vampire-human relations. Marcus Chen was documenting everything. Mira had just finished outlining consent-based feeding protocols when the windows exploded. Glass rained down like deadly snow. Vampires poured through, not 12 or 20, but 50. 100. They moved with military precision, targeting mortals first. Screams filled the air as humans fell, throats torn open before they could even run. Shields! Soren roared. The vampire allies formed a protective ring around surviving mortals. Steel met claws, blood-painted marble floors. Mira grabbed Marcus, pulling him behind an overturned table. Keep filming, she hissed. No matter what happens, the world needs to see this. They'll kill us. Then we die, proving them monsters. She shoved a silver blade into his hands. Fight or hide, but don't stop recording. Mira launched herself into the fray. The bond with Soren had changed her, made her faster, stronger, aware of every vampire's position like a sixth sense. She moved through the chaos with preternatural grace, silver singing as it found flesh. Across the hall, Soren fought like the king. He was devastating, precise, absolute. But even he couldn't be everywhere. Couldn't protect everyone. A mortal counselor fell, her throat opened by claws. Then another. Rage flooded Mira. These were innocent people, politicians, scientists, activists who'd believed in peace. Now they were dying for that belief. She wouldn't let their deaths be meaningless. To me, she screamed. Surviving mortals scrambled toward her position. Mira formed them into a defensive circle, teaching them in seconds what Soren had taught her in days. Strike low, aim for joints, never stop moving. They fought like cornered wolves. Lysandra appeared at Mira's side, her blades dripping crimson. The court's counsel is here in the courtyard, leading the assault personally. Good. Mira's smile was sharp. Then let's end this. They fought toward the doors. Soren joined them, his face a mask of controlled fury. Together, they crashed into the courtyard. The 5 court elders waited. They stood in perfect formation, ancient and terrible. The silver-haired woman Victoria smiled. Did you really think we'd accept defeat? Her voice carried over the carnage. You've humiliated us, exposed us, turned mortals against us. For that, you'll watch everyone you love die before we grant you the mercy of extinction. Mercy. Mira laughed bitter, furious. You don't know the meaning of the word. And you're a mortal playing at immortality. Victoria's gaze swept over her. Dismissive. What Soren has made you, it's an abomination. Neither human nor vampire. A mistake that needs correction. She's not a mistake. Soren's power exploded outward. She's evolution. The future you're too afraid to accept. The future is what we make it. The golden-eyed elder Hadrian stepped forward. And we're making one without traitors or mortal sympathizers. They attacked. What followed was apocalypse. Power against power. Centuries of skill against desperate innovation. The courtyard became a battlefield as both sides collided. Mira fought Hadrian, dodging, striking, surviving through speed and fury. He was stronger, faster, older, but she was fighting for love while he fought for pride. That made all the difference. She drove her blade through his shoulder. He screamed, stumbling back. Before he could recover, Lysandra appeared, her expression carved from vengeance. "This is for Elias," she whispered, then took his head. Across the courtyard, Soren faced Victoria. They circled each other like warring gods. "You could have ruled beside me," Victoria said. "Could have shaped eternity according to our will. Instead, you chose weakness. I chose love." Soren's voice was steady. "Something you've never understood. Love is a chain." "No." Mira appeared beside him, bloodied but unbroken. "Love is wings." Together, they struck. Husband and wife, mortal and vampire, human and monster and everything between. Their combined power crashed into Victoria like a tsunami. She went down hard. When the dust cleared, the 3 remaining court elders stood frozen, their champions dead, their power shattered. They looked at Soren and Mira standing together in the wreckage of their attempted coup and understood. They'd lost. "Yield," Soren commanded, "or die." For 3 heartbeats, the court elders stood defiant. Then one by one, they knelt. "We yield," the eldest whispered. "The throne is yours, Lord Valerius." Silence fell across the battlefield. Soren looked at the carnage bodies of friends and enemies alike, blood-staining, ancient stones. Then at Mira, standing beside him with a blade in her hand and fire in her eyes. "I don't want a throne," he said quietly. "I want a council. Vampire and mortal, ruling together as equals." He raised his voice. "The age of courts is over. We build something new, something better, or we build nothing at all." The surviving vampires, court loyalists, and rebels alike stared at him. Then Katya began to applaud. Tobias joined her. Then Lysandra. Then the mortal counselors who'd survived. Soon the entire courtyard rang with the sound not worship, but hope. The court elders looked at each other, then slowly nodded. "It seems the world has changed," Victoria said, her voice hollow. "We will adapt. Or die trying," Lysandra added pleasantly. The threat was clear. As dawn approached, they gathered the survivors. 18 mortals lived, 34 vampires. Not nearly enough, but more than Mira had dared hope. Marcus approached, his camera still recording. "I got everything, every second. The world will see exactly what happened here." "Good." Mira touched his shoulder. "Make sure they understand this wasn't vampire against human. This was tyranny against freedom. And freedom won." Marcus nodded. "I'll make sure they understand." As he left to begin editing, Soren pulled Mira close. They stood together in the wreckage of the old world, watching the new one being born. "We did it," she whispered. "You did it." He kissed her forehead. "I just followed where you led." "Liar." But she smiled. "What now?" "Now we rebuild. Properly this time. With laws, accountability, justice." His expression turned serious. "It won't be easy. Change never is." "No." Mira looked at the survivors beginning to clear debris. "But we'll face it together. Always. Forever." The word held weight now, not a threat but a promise. They'd earned their eternity through blood and courage and refusing to accept that monsters couldn't change. Now they had the rest of time to prove it. Chapter 10. The New Dawn. 3 months later, the first unified council convened. The venue was neutral, a renovated cathedral that had once been sacred ground, now transformed into a symbol of cooperation. Vampires and humans sat in equal numbers, their voices carrying equal weight. At the center, Soren and Mira presided not as rulers, but as mediators. "The feeding protocols are working," Katya reported. "Consent-based exchange, documented and witnessed. Reports of unauthorized feeding have dropped 70%. Prosecution of violators?" Mira asked. "Swift and severe. We're making examples." "Good. Next item?" Tobias stood. "The medical research program is exceeding expectations. Doctor, Patel's team has isolated 3 vampire-specific enzymes that could revolutionize disease treatment. With proper safeguards?" Soren's tone was sharp. "All research is conducted with vampire oversight and approval. No exploitation." Nods rippled through the chamber. They continued, like this for hours, discussing education programs, teaching children about vampire culture, employment integration initiatives, housing developments designed for mixed populations. Every decision was deliberate, collaborative, revolutionary. Afterward, Mira found Soren on the cathedral's roof, watching the city lights. "We're doing it," she said quietly. "Actually building something that works. For now." He pulled her close. "But systems are only as good as the people maintaining them. We'll need to stay vigilant. Keep fighting. Ensure the next generation understands why this matters." "Sounds like you're planning long-term. I have eternity." His smile was soft. "Might as well spend it building a better world." Mira leaned into him. The bond between them hummed constant, comforting, complete. She could feel his emotions like her own. Pride in what they'd accomplished, fear for what could be lost, love that transcended mortality. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Giving up the throne? The power?" "Not for a second." Soren turned her to face him. "Power without purpose is meaningless. But this changing society, one day at a time, alongside someone I love, that's worth more than any throne, even if it means centuries of bureaucracy." He laughed. Even then, they stood together as night deepened, watching their city no longer divided between mortal and immortal, but unified by shared purpose. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. Prejudice still existed. Fear still lingered. Some humans would always hate vampires. Some vampires would always see mortals as lesser. But the future they'd built offered something better. Hope. Hope that understanding could overcome fear. That cooperation could defeat tyranny. That love between mortal and immortal, human and vampire, could transcend death itself. Below them, Lysandra walked with a group of young vampires, teaching them about consent and compassion. Marcus Chen interviewed survivors for his ongoing NEPN documentary series. Former court members worked alongside rebel vampires, rebuilding what they'd once tried to destroy. "Elias would be proud," Mira said quietly. "Isabeau too." Soren's voice was soft. "They dreamed of this, died for it. Now we're living it. No pressure then?" "Absolutely none." But his smile was gentle. A bell tower struck midnight, the witching hour, when magic was strongest. Mira felt it through the bond. Soren's immortal essence, her mortal soul forever intertwined. Neither fully vampire nor completely human, but something new, something better. "Ready to face another century?" Soren asked. Mira kissed him long, deep, eternal. "With you?" she whispered against his lips. "I'm ready for forever." And beneath a sky full of stars, the fallen king and the homeless girl who'd saved him stood together, guardians of a future they'd built through blood, courage, and love that refused to die. The world was changing, and they were leading the way. Epilogue. The Crown of Shadows. 50 years later. The memorial stood in the cathedral's gardens, a simple monument of black marble, engraved with names. Mira traced her fingers over them. Counselors who'd died in the first attack, vampires who'd sacrificed themselves for peace, mortals who'd believed in cooperation despite fear. At the bottom, 2 names intertwined, Isabeau and Elias. "We finally built what you dreamed," Mira whispered. Soren appeared beside her, his presence as familiar as breath. Gray streaked his dark hair, now impossible for a full vampire, but their bond made him mortal enough to age, just slowly. He'd lived centuries. She'd lived decades more than any human should. Together, they'd found equilibrium between eternity and mortality. "The new generation is graduating today," Soren said. "First class trained in integrated studies, vampire and human history taught side by side. Tobias is teaching? Katya too." His smile was proud. "They're excellent instructors, patient, fair, refusing to let prejudice poison young minds." Mira leaned against him. "We did good work, didn't we? We did necessary work." Soren's arm circled her waist, the hardest kind. The gardens had changed since that first battle, now filled with roses. Soren grew himself, crimson blooms, thriving impossibly in all seasons. Students studied beneath their shade. Couples, vampire and mortal, walked hand in hand without fear. Children played, their laughter proof that the future they'd built was working. "Marcus wants to interview us," Mira said, "for the 50th anniversary documentary. About the battle, about us." She looked up at him. "About the homeless girl and the dying king who changed the world by choosing mercy." Soren's expression softened. "You were never homeless, just waiting for the right home to find you." "Romantic nonsense." "Absolute truth." He kissed her forehead. "Though I prefer the mortal who saw past the monster and chose to love anyway. Better." Mira smiled. and the vampire who proved love was stronger than fear. They stood together, surrounded by the garden they'd grown, watching the world they'd built continue without them. Because that was the real victory, not being needed anymore. Creating systems strong enough to survive beyond their architects. Ready to retire? Soren asked. From politics? Yes. From you? Mira took his hand. Never. They walked through the gardens as twilight painted everything gold and crimson. Students nodded respectfully as they passed. No worship, no fear, just recognition of those who'd come before and built the foundation. At the garden's heart stood one last monument, a crown made of thorns and roses, frozen in crystal, the symbol of the fallen court, preserved not as victory trophy but as reminder. Power corrupts, love endures. Choose wisely. Mira and Soren stood before it, their intertwined shadows stretching across marble as sunset deepened into night. Do you think we'll be remembered? Mira asked. For a while. Soren's voice was peaceful. Then we'll fade, as all things must. But what we built, he gestured to the thriving gardens, the integrated students, the world that had learned to coexist. That will last. Good. Mira leaned into him. I don't need statues. Just a world where no one freezes alone in alleys, where monsters can choose mercy, where love transcends death. We have that. Soren pulled her close. We've always had that. Since the moment you offered me a blanket and changed eternity. The bond between them hummed constant, eternal, complete. They left the memorial as stars emerged, walking toward the small house they'd built at the estate's edge. No throne rooms, no grand halls, just a home, filled with books and roses, and 50 years of shared life. Inside, Lysandra waited with wine and news of the day. They ate together, talked, laughed, three immortals who'd learned that eternity was bearable only when shared with those you loved. When night deepened, Soren and Mira climbed to their roof. They lay together under stars, watching constellations paint stories across infinity. No regrets? Mira whispered. Not a single one. Soren's hand found hers. You? Only that I didn't give you 2 blankets. His laugh echoed across rooftops, joyful, free, human despite centuries. They lay together as the world slept, mortal and immortal perfectly intertwined. The homeless girl who'd shown mercy, the vampire king who'd chosen love. 2 souls who'd found each other in darkness and built something luminous from the ruins of fear. Their story would fade, but the dawn they'd created would shine forever, and that was enough.